The sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the bustling city streets. Inside a high-end clothing store, employees moved swiftly, arranging displays and assisting customers. The store was one of the most successful in the area, known for its luxury brands and impeccable service. What most people didn't know was that the man who owned it all was about to walk through those very doors, and be turned away. He was a self-made millionaire, a black entrepreneur who had built his empire from the ground up. He preferred to stay out of the spotlight, letting his work speak for itself. Today, he decided to visit one of his stores unannounced, something he did from time to check on operations. Dressed casually in a simple hoodie and jeans, he looked like any other customer. As he entered, the chime of the door announced his arrival. A young sales associate glanced at him, her eyes scanning his outfit before she turned away, pretending to rearrange a stack of shirts. He noticed but didn't react, used to the subtle dismissals that came with being judged by appearance. He walked deeper into the store, examining the merchandise, checking if everything was as it should be. A well-dressed couple walked in behind him, and immediately, the same sales associate perked up, flashing a bright smile. "Welcome. How can I assist you today?" she gushed, rushing over to them. The CEO watched as she fawned over the couple, offering them premium service while he stood just a few feet away, completely ignored. He decided to test the waters. Approaching the counter, he picked up a high-priced watch. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Could you tell me more about this piece?" The associate barely glanced at him. "It's expensive," she said dismissively before turning back to the other customers. A security guard nearby had been watching the interaction. He stepped forward, his tone firm. "You need to put that down, sir. If you're not buying anything, you should leave." The CEO raised an eyebrow. "I'm just browsing. Isn't that what customers do?" The guard crossed his arms. "This isn't the kind of place for casual browsing. Move along." The word stung, but the CEO remained calm. He had faced worse in his journey to the top. Instead of arguing, he simply nodded and walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Outside, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. I need you to gather the staff at the downtown location. Immediately." Back inside the store, the associate and the guard laughed quietly, thinking they had handled another suspicious customer. Little did they know, their actions were about to cost them everything. Within minutes, the store manager's phone rang. His face paled as he listened to the voice on the other end. He rushed to the front, clapping his hands. "Everyone, stop what you're doing. We have an emergency meeting, now." Confused, the employees gathered near the counter. The associate who had dismissed the CEO earlier rolled her eyes. "What's the big deal?" she muttered. The manager took a deep breath. "The big deal," he said, voice shaking, "is that the man you just kicked out was the owner of this store." Silence. The color drained from the associate's face. The guard's mouth fell open. The couple they had been fawning over exchanged confused glances. And just like that, karma was already on its way. The air in the store grew thick with tension as the employees stood frozen, processing the manager's words. The associate who had dismissed the CEO felt her stomach drop. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the edge of the counter for support. The security guard, who had been so confident moments ago, now shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The manager wiped his forehead, his voice low but firm. "He just called me. He's on his way back, with the regional director." A murmur spread through the staff. The regional director was known for being ruthless when it came to company standards. If she was involved, this wasn't just a warning, it was a disaster. The associate finally found her voice. "I didn't know. He wasn't dressed like." "It doesn't matter how he was dressed," the manager snapped, cutting her off. Our job is to treat every customer with respect. You know the policy. She swallowed hard, remembering the training videos she had skimmed through during her onboarding. Judge a customer by their needs, not their appearance. She had laughed at it back then, thinking it was just corporate nonsense. Now, it was coming back to haunt her. Outside, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The CEO stepped out, this time followed by a sharp-eyed woman in a tailored suit, the regional director. The employees inside watched through the glass doors, their nerves tightening with every step the two took toward the entrance. The chime of the door sounded again, but this time, no one ignored it. Every staff member stood stiffly, bracing for what was coming. The CEO walked in slowly, his expression unreadable. His eyes scanned the room before landing on the associate and the guard. He didn't say anything at first, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Finally, the regional director spoke. Who was responsible for the interaction with Mr. Johnson earlier? The title, Mr. Johnson, sent another wave of dread through the room. The associate hesitated, then raised her hand slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. It was me. The security guard cleared his throat. And me. The CEO crossed his arms. Care to explain why I was treated like a thief in my own store? The associate's mind raced for an excuse, but nothing came out that didn't sound pathetic. I thought. You thought what? The CEO pressed. That I couldn't afford anything here? That I didn't belong? She looked down, shame burning her cheeks. There was no way to sugarcoat it. She had judged him, and she had been wrong. The regional director pulled out a tablet, tapping a few times before speaking. This isn't the first complaint about this location. There have been multiple reports of certain customers receiving preferential treatment while others are ignored or followed around. Corporate has been lenient so far, but this? She shook her head. This is unacceptable. The manager's shoulders slumped. He had tried to enforce better practices, but some of the staff had brushed him off, confident in their way of doing things. Now, they were all paying the price. The CEO sighed, rubbing his temple. I built this company from nothing. I know what it's like to be looked down on, to be told I don't belong in certain spaces. The last thing I want is for my own stores to make others feel that way. He paused, then made his decision. The two of you, he said, looking at the associate and the guard, are fired. Effective immediately. The words hit like a hammer. The associate opened her mouth to protest, but the CEO held up a hand. I don't care about apologies now. What's done is done. But I do care about making sure this never happens again. He turned to the rest of the staff. For everyone else, consider this a wake-up call. We're implementing mandatory retraining, not just on policies, but on basic human decency. If you can't treat people right, you don't belong here. With that, he turned and walked toward the back office, the regional director following. The dismissed employees were escorted out, their careers at the company over in an instant. As the remaining staff exchanged uneasy glances, one of the junior employees, a quiet young man who had always been polite to every customer, finally spoke up. Maybe this was needed. Maybe we have been getting it wrong. No one argued. Meanwhile, outside, the fired associate sat on a bench, staring at her termination papers. The guard paced nearby, muttering under his breath. They had thought they were in control, that their snap judgments were justified. But karma didn't care about their excuses. And the CEO? He wasn't done yet. The morning after the incident, the CEO sat in his office, scrolling through emails with a frown. He'd expected some internal fallout, but nothing could have prepared him for what was waiting in his inbox. Subject: urgent, video of downtown store incident going viral. His stomach dropped. He clicked the link. There it was, a shaky cell phone video of the entire confrontation, from the moment he was ignored to the tense staff meeting afterward. The clip had been uploaded to social media just hours ago and already had millions of views. The caption read, "Black CEO gets disrespected at his own store, watch what happens next." Comments flooded in by the second. "This is why I don't shop there anymore. That employee got what she deserved. CEO handled it like a boss." He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This wasn't just about one store anymore, it was a PR wildfire. Meanwhile, across town, the fired sales associate stared at her phone in horror. Notifications exploded across her screen, angry DMs, tags and hateful posts, even memes mocking her. Her private Instagram had been dug up, her face plastered across Twitter with #racist retail worker trending. She threw her phone onto the couch like it burned her. "This isn't fair. I didn't even say anything racist." Her roommate, who'd been quietly watching from the kitchen, finally spoke. "You treated him like he didn't belong there. That's the problem." Back at corporate headquarters, the PR team was in crisis mode. "We need you to make a statement," the head of communications urged the CEO. "People are taking sides, and the narrative's getting out of control." The CEO studied the still-growing view count. He hadn't wanted this attention, but now that it was here, maybe it could do some good. Set up a press conference, he decided. But not some sterile corporate statement, "I'll do it at the store where it happened." By noon, news vans crowded the sidewalk outside the boutique. The CEO adjusted his tie as cameras flashed. This wasn't just damage control anymore. It was a moment. "Yesterday wasn't about me," he began, voice carrying over the murmuring crowd. "It was about how we treat people when we think no one's watching. That young woman lost her job not because she's a bad person, but because she forgot that every person walking through those doors deserves respect." A reporter shouted, "Will you be pressing charges?" The CEO almost laughed. "This isn't about punishment. It's about accountability. Starting today, we're launching an initiative. Every employee, from cashiers to executives, will undergo unconscious bias training. Not as punishment, but because growth starts with awareness." Then he dropped the mic moment no one expected. "And to the employee who filmed this, thank you. Because sometimes change needs a push." The crowd erupted. Across the internet, the tone shifted, think pieces analyzed, corporate accountability, influencers debated, everyday prejudice, and surprisingly, some began defending the fired workers. "She messed up, but does she deserve death threats? We've all judged someone by their clothes, let's be real." In a small apartment, the former associate watched the live stream with tears in her eyes. When the CEO said, "I hope this becomes a learning moment for everyone involved," something broke inside her. She picked up her phone, not to defend herself, but to type something she never thought she'd post publicly. "I'm the employee from the video. I was wrong. Not because he was the CEO, but because how I treated him was wrong, period. I'm sorry." The response was instant. Some mocked her. Some forgave her. A few even shared their own stories of being judged unfairly. As the CEO wrapped up the conference, a young black teenager pushed through the crowd. "Sir, can I ask, how do you stay so calm when people treat you like that?" The CEO knelt to meet the kid's eye level. "Because son, every time someone underestimates you, that's just them handing you the advantage." The moment, raw, unscripted, became the defining image of the entire saga. News outlets cropped it for their headlines. Memes turned it into inspirational posts. By nightfall, something remarkable happened. The store's online sales skyrocketed. Not from boycotts, but from supporters. The CEO checked the numbers in disbelief, their biggest sales day in company history. His phone buzzed. The regional director, "You realize we'll have to expand the training program nationwide now?" He smiled. Exactly what he'd hoped for. 3 days after the press conference, the CEO sat in his home office, reviewing the flood of emails still pouring in about the incident. Most were supportive, some were critical, and a few were just plain bizarre. But one subject line caught his attention. Subject, from the employee who failed you. His finger hovered over the mouse. Part of him wanted to delete it unread, he'd already said his piece publicly. But curiosity won out. The email was raw, unpolished, and clearly written through tears. You didn't have to be kind at that press conference. After how I treated you, most people would have destroyed me. I've spent these last days replaying that moment, trying to understand why I acted that way. The truth is, I grew up being told people like us have to work twice as hard to get half as much. When I saw you dressed casually, some twisted part of me thought I was finally the one who got to feel superior for once. I was wrong. Not just about you, but about everything. She went on to describe how the viral shame had cost her 2 job interviews already, how her parents back home had seen the video, how she'd become a cautionary tale overnight. I'm not asking for my job back. I just wanted you to know your words reached me. And if you ever do those training sessions you mentioned, I'd like to attend. Not for show. To learn. The CEO leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't the angry defense or groveling plea he'd expected. This was growth. Meanwhile, the former security guard wasn't having the same awakening. At a dive bar across town, he slammed down his beer. Man got rich and decided to make examples out of us, he slurred to whoever would listen. That's all this was, some power trip. The bartender, who'd seen the viral video, quietly switched the TV to a sports channel. The next morning, the CEO's assistant looked shocked when given the instructions, track down that former sales associate. I want to meet her, neutral location, no cameras. When they met at a quiet cafe, the young woman looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hands shook around her teacup. I almost didn't come, she admitted immediately. Figured you'd just yell at me again. The CEO surprised them both by laughing. What would that solve? He pushed a folder across the table. I had HR pull your records. Before this mess, your performance reviews were stellar. Customers loved you. She blinked. Then how could I? Because prejudice isn't about being a mustache-twirling villain, he said. It's about the stories we absorb without realizing. That clerk who follows black teens around stores. She thinks she's just being careful. The bouncer who turns away natural hairstyles. He claims it's about professionalism. A long silence followed. Finally, she whispered, so what now? The CEO made his decision in that moment. Now you help me fix it. The training program launches next week. Be our first participant, then help us improve it for others. Her teacup clattered against the saucer. You'd trust me with that? People can change, he said simply. But they've got to want to. The guard, however, proved the opposite point. When contacted with a similar offer, his response was a string of expletives followed by, ain't no sensitivity training gonna fix how the world really works. The CEO just shook his head when the report came in. Can't help those who won't see the problem. Media frenzy erupted anew when leaked photos showed the former associate entering corporate headquarters. Conspiracy theories flew. Was she suing? Had they paid her off? The truth came at the next press briefing. The CEO stood flanked by his new training team, including a very nervous-looking young woman the internet immediately recognized. Meet our newest program developer, he announced. Because who better to help identify blind spots than someone who's lived them? Reporters shouted over each other. Is this just PR? Does she still have a job here? The CEO raised a hand. She's contracted as a consultant. As for whether it's PR? He nodded to her. She took a deep breath. "It's penance," she said clearly. "Not because he's making me, but because I owe it, to him, to every customer I ever judged, and to that stupid version of myself I never want to be again." The room fell silent. Even the most cynical journalists put down their phones. That evening, the CEO's phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Forgiving is one thing. But giving her a platform? You sure about this?" He watched the news coverage, already spinning the story as either a redemption arc or a corporate stunt, and typed back, "Only one way to find out." Somewhere across the city, a former retail worker turned consultant stared at her ceiling, wondering how her life had changed so drastically in a week. And in a rundown apartment, a bitter ex-guard smashed his phone after seeing her face on the news. The training hadn't even begun, and already, it was separating those who'd grow from those who'd rather burn everything down. The corporate training room buzzed with nervous energy as employees from every store in the region filed in. The CEO stood near the back, observing. Today would determine whether this initiative would spark real change or become just another box-checking exercise. At the front of the room, the former associate, now introduced as a program consultant, adjusted her microphone with clammy hands. The whispers were audible. "That's her, the one from the video. Why's she leading this? She's the reason we're here." The regional director silenced the room with a sharp clap. "Before we begin, let's get one thing straight. This isn't about shaming anyone. It's about recognizing biases so ingrained, most of us don't even see them." A veteran store manager crossed his arms. "We all know not to profile customers. What more is there to say?" The consultant took a steadying breath. "It's not just about the obvious stuff. Last year, did your store put all the minority models in the back of your catalogs? Do you automatically steer plus-size customers toward baggy clothes? When two teens walk in, does security only follow the black one?" The room went uncomfortably quiet. Meanwhile, in the break room, 3 employees from the flagship store huddled around a phone watching the live stream. "Man, she's really leaning into this woke act," muttered a cashier. The stock boy frowned. "Or maybe she's actually trying to fix things." Their debate was cut short when the CEO himself walked in, grabbing a coffee. All 3 froze. He nodded at the live stream. "You know, the people resisting this hardest are usually the ones who need it most." The cashier turned beet red. Back in the training session, tensions escalated when the consultant introduced the shoe test, a simple exercise where employees had to describe how they'd approach different customers based solely on photos. A senior stylist threw down her pen. "This is ridiculous. I've worked here 12 years. And how many of your clients look like me?" the consultant challenged gently. The stylist opened her mouth, then closed it. The uncomfortable truth settled over the room like fog. The real turning point came during role-playing exercises. When a cocky assistant manager was assigned to play an elderly Hispanic man being ignored by staff, his smirk vanished within minutes. "Damn," he admitted afterward, rubbing his neck. "That actually sucked." Laughter broke the tension, but the lesson stuck. Not everyone was on board. During lunch, a clique of employees conspired in the parking lot. "This is bullshit," a sales associate hissed. "Next they'll make us kiss every customer's feet." Their ringleader, none other than the cashier who'd mocked the training earlier, pulled out her phone. "Let's see how woke they look on camera." She started recording covert footage of the session, carefully cropping out context. The CEO spotted the rebellion brewing. He intercepted the cashier on her way back inside. "Problem with the training?" She jumped. "And no, sir. It's enlightening." He held out his hand. "Then you won't mind showing me what you found so enlightening on your phone?" Her face paled. That evening, the cashier sat across from HR, tearfully explaining the misunderstanding. The CEO watched through the glass, conflicted. The HR director sighed. Third offense. Policy says we terminate. The CEO studied the girl, barely 20, clearly terrified. He thought of his own early mistakes. Give her a choice, he decided. She can resign tonight, no mark on her record. Or we proceed formally, and that video she took becomes evidence. When presented with the option, the cashier broke down. I just thought it was funny. I didn't mean. Intentions don't erase impact, the HR director said, not unkindly. Sign here if you want the clean exit. With shaking hands, she did. The consultant approached the CEO afterward. You went easy on her. He nodded. Today was about growth. Some people need to stumble before they learn to walk. She considered this. The cashier, she's young. Maybe in a few years. Maybe, he allowed. But redemption only works if people want to change. Not everyone does. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with an alert. The ex-security guard had just given an incendiary interview to a fringe website, calling the training program anti-white discrimination. The CEO showed the consultant. She winced. Or some people double down on stupid. By week's end, something remarkable happened. Employees started self-policing. Hey, you just walked past that hijabi lady 3 times, a stock boy whispered to a colleague. The chastised employee immediately course-corrected. At closing time, the consultant packed up her materials, exhausted but hopeful. The CEO joined her. First wave down. Think it'll stick? She smiled slightly. Ask me after we see the secret shopper reports next month. They both knew the real test was coming, when cameras weren't rolling, when no one was watching. That's when true character showed. For weeks after the training program launched, the CEO sat in the corporate boardroom surrounded by his executive team. The air was thick with anticipation as the regional director prepared to reveal the secret shopper results, undercover audits conducted at every store to measure real behavioral changes. The consultant sat stiffly in the corner, her nails digging into her palms. This moment would determine whether her redemption arc was genuine or just a PR stunt. The regional director cleared her throat. Overall customer satisfaction scores. She paused dramatically. Up 38% from last quarter. A murmur spread through the room. Incidents of reported discrimination? Down to 0. She clicked to the next slide. And here's the kicker, sales in previously underperforming urban locations? Up 22%. The CEO allowed himself a small smile. The numbers confirmed what he'd suspected all along, fair treatment wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. But then the regional director's expression darkened. However, we did have one outlier. The screen changed to show footage from a suburban location. There, plain as day, a sales associate was following a young black secret shopper through the aisles while ignoring her white counterpart. The consultant gasped. That's Linda from the flagship store. She aced all the training modules. The CEO leaned forward, steepling his fingers. Which proves our point, you can't fix deep-seated bias with a few workshops. This is why we're making the training quarterly. Meanwhile, at a coffee shop across town, the fired cashier scrolled through her former co-workers' social media posts about the amazing cultural shift at the company. Her stomach churned with regret. Her phone buzzed with a new message, the ex-security guard. You see this BS? Now they're making them do privilege walks like some cult. Meet me at Barney's tonight, we're planning something. She stared at the message, torn between bitterness and the uncomfortable truth she'd been avoiding. With shaky fingers, she typed, I'm out. Back at headquarters, the CEO reviewed the Linda situation with HR, her record? Spotless until now, the HR director admitted. But this footage is undeniable. The consultant spoke up unexpectedly. Let me talk to her first. The CEO raised an eyebrow. You think you can get through to her? I know what that headspace feels like, she said quietly. The cognitive dissonance of believing you're not racist while acting exactly like one. The confrontation happened in a quiet office at the flagship store. Linda entered with crossed arms. If this is about that secret shopper nonsense, she was acting suspicious. The consultant didn't flinch. Funny, the white girl with the same baggy clothes and resting bitch face wasn't suspicious at all, was she? Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. The consultant pushed a tablet across the table, security footage from that day playing side by side. The difference was undeniable. Linda's face crumpled. I didn't. I mean, I wasn't trying to. Trying doesn't matter, the consultant said firmly. Impact does. Now you've got a choice, keep making excuses, or do the uncomfortable work of changing. A long silence followed. Finally, Linda whispered, "What do I do?" That evening, the CEO received two noteworthy messages. First, from the consultant, Linda's enrolled in advanced bias training. She's embarrassed but willing. The second was more concerning, an anonymous tip about a group of disgruntled former employees planning to protest outside their biggest store. His phone buzzed again. The regional director, the guard, got to some media outlets. They're spinning it as forced woke indoctrination. What's our move? The CEO stared out his office window at the city lights. This was no longer just about training, it was becoming a cultural flashpoint. And he knew exactly where it would lead. The protest began at dawn. A dozen picket signs bobbed outside the flagship store's entrance, their messages sharpened in angry block letters. Stop the woke mandates. Discrimination against white workers. At the center stood the ex-security guard, now wearing a free speech advocate badge and shouting into a bullhorn. News vans circled like sharks, cameras feeding the spectacle live to morning shows. Inside, employees peered nervously through the blinds. Should we even open today? A cashier whispered. The store manager hesitated, then jumped as the CEO's voice came through the staff radio, open early. I'm on my way. The consultant watched the chaos unfold on TV from her apartment. Her phone lit up with a text from the CEO. You don't have to come today. This will get ugly. She stared at the screen, remembering the viral shame that had upended her life. Now the roles were reversed, the protesters were the ones screaming about unfair treatment. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing, on my way. They need to see this isn't just about you. By the time the CEO arrived, the crowd had doubled, half protesters, half counter-protesters chanting, Black Lives Matter. Police barricades went up as tensions escalated. The guard spotted the CEO and charged forward, bullhorn screeching, here's the man who fires hard-working Americans for telling the truth. Reporters swarmed. Mr. Johnson. Are you reconsidering your diversity policies? He didn't flinch. We don't reconsider treating people with dignity. A tomato splattered near his feet. The crowd gasped. That's when the consultant pushed through, positioning herself beside him. The guard's eyes bulged. You. After what they did to you, you're still their puppet? She took the CEO's microphone. They gave me something better than revenge, a chance to grow. The confrontation might have ended there if not for Linda. The once resistant employee emerged from the store holding a handmade sign, I was the problem. Now I'm part of the solution. Protesters booed. Traitor. But then something unexpected happened, other employees began joining her. The stock boy who'd once doubted the training. The skeptical stylist from the workshop. Even the assistant manager who'd hated the role-playing exercises. One by one, they lined up behind their CEO, a living rebuttal to the woke coercion narrative. The media frenzy reached fever pitch when the ex-cashier appeared, not with the protesters, but holding coffee for the employees. "I was wrong," she told reporters simply. "It's that easy to say when you mean it." The guard's face purpled with rage. "They brainwashed you all." The CEO finally stepped forward again. "The only thing we forced people to do was look in the mirror. If that's brainwashing, maybe America needs more of it." The quote would dominate headlines for days. By noon, the protest fizzled. News cycles moved on. But the real victory came that evening, when the CEO's phone buzzed with an alert. His company had just topped Best Places to Work lists in 3 major publications. The consultant slumped into a chair in his office, exhausted. Think he'll ever get it? The CEO glanced out the window where the guard was still ranting to a single remaining reporter. "Some people would rather burn down the world than admit they need to change." She nodded. "Good thing there's more of us." But as night fell, one final twist unfolded. The guard's incendiary interview aired on a fringe network, only for the segment to go viral when viewers noticed something telling. Throughout his rant about reverse racism, the cheerin at the bottom read, "Former security guard, convicted of shoplifting 2018. The internet exploded. Turns out, the man who'd spent months profiling suspicious customers had once been arrested for stealing from his previous employer. Karma, it seemed, had the last laugh after all. 1 year later. The CEO adjusted his tie in the greenroom mirror as applause thundered from the studio audience. Tonight, his company was being honored with the Corporate Leadership in Social Equality award, a far cry from the viral scandal that had nearly derailed everything. His phone buzzed. A text from the consultant, now his director of diversity initiatives, "Break a leg." But not literally. "The insurance paperwork is brutal." He chuckled just as the stage manager waved him on. "5 seconds, Mr. Johnson." The spotlight hit as he strode on stage to accept the crystal trophy. The host grinned. "From internet villain to visionary leader in 12 months, how'd you do it?" The CEO glanced at the teleprompter's prepared speech, then set it aside. "By realizing my job wasn't to punish prejudice, but to outgrow it, myself included." He nodded toward the front row where Linda sat, now a store manager mentoring new hires. Change isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Meanwhile, at an airport food court 3 states away, the ex-security guard scowled at the award ceremony playing on the overhead TV. His job search had taken him from retail to warehouse work to now, a graveyard shift as a parking lot attendant. His phone buzzed with a collect call from county jail, his old protest buddy. "Man, you seen this BS? They're making bank off our faces." The guard opened his mouth to rant, then paused. The CEO's words from the stage echoed, "Every interaction is a choice, to dig in or dig deeper." He hung up mid-tirade. Back at headquarters, the consultant-turned-director reviewed next quarter's training plans with her team, including the former cashier who'd quit in shame, now rehired as a junior facilitator. "Next module tackles disability bias," the young woman explained excitedly. "We're using VR so abled folks can experience access barriers firsthand." Linda raised an eyebrow. "That'll piss people off." "Good," the director said. "Comfortable people don't change." The CEO's car pulled up to his old flagship store that evening. Inside, employees froze, not in fear, but recognition. A new cashier gasped. "Oh my God, it's really you." He laughed. "Just here to browse." And for the first time, that's exactly what happened. No whispers, no stares, just a man shopping in his own store. At checkout, the young cashier hesitated. "Sir, your total is $87.50. He handed over his card. "Call me the man." "Sir, makes me feel old." She grinned. "You got it, man." Later, as his driver navigated downtown traffic, the CEO scrolled through the day's headlines. Buried beneath political scandals was a small piece about his former critic, the guard, volunteering at a youth center in his new city. No fanfare. No redemption arc. Just a grainy photo of him teaching teenagers to change tires, alongside a black mechanic he'd once have dismissed. The CEO smiled and closed the app. Some transformations didn't need spotlights. His phone lit up with one last message, this time from his teenage daughter, "Dad. You're trending again. #leadership goals." Attached was a meme comparing his year-old press conference to tonight's speech. The caption? "Growth looks good on you." As the city lights blurred past, the CEO leaned back, finally at peace with the messy, imperfect work of change. Not every battle had been won. Not every heart had been changed. But for those willing to try, the door was always open.